And I'm so happy to have with me right now one of my great friends in the gaming world, advocacy world. On this GAD day, we have the one and only Brandon Cole.
Yeah,
Brandon, what's
that's
happening,
me.
my man? How are you?
I am doing great. I'm doing fantastic. It's going to be a great day. It's going to be a great week. I mean, everything's just coming up accessibility right now.
Tell
It's
me
really
about
good.
it.
It's good.
Tell me about it, my friend. And I wanted to have you on in particular during this day to ask you what has accessibility done for you? What does it mean to you in your personal life and your professional life? Brandon, please share. And before we do that, Brandon, for ones who may not be aware of how awesome you are, why don't you give them a little rundown of your disability and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am Brendan Cole. I am totally blind, basically since birth. I was born with a type of cancer called retinoblastoma, and that took my eyes, which is fine because I have not let that stop me in any way, shape, or form. I am a creature of many hats, as I like to say. I am a blogger, a podcaster, a streamer, a content creator, and of course, most of all, an accessibility consultant and advocate working in the game industry, which is the best job in the world. I'm just going to say it right now.
I would concur with that, my friend. I would concur because Brandon and I can't talk about something right now, but one day we will be able to talk about it. But
I know, man.
and
It
I
hurts. It physically
yes,
hurts.
yes, and I can't wait till we can actually talk about it. And
Yep.
Brandon, what has accessibility meant to you personally and even on a professional level?
I think there's an easy answer to this, and it's an answer that I have given today for GAAD on multiple occasions. Accessibility means freedom, and that's the way that I see it because it's accessibility is access for someone with disabilities. If there's something that you can't do, to make that thing accessible means to make it so you can do that thing. A good example outside of the gaming world is the iPhone, especially for the blind, is the iPhone. Because when Apple decided, hey, we care about the disabled and we're going to add this thing called VoiceOver to all of our iPhones, uh, doors were literally flung open for the blind. Suddenly, we could use the same apps that everyone else was using. Suddenly, we could text and call. I mean, we could do those basic things on other phones, but before the iPhone, it was very limited to that. And you best believe the iPhone doing this influenced Android doing it. So uh, the accessibility of VoiceOver, the accessibility of the iPhone gave us the freedom to do the things that everyone else was doing on their phones. Everything from Facebook to Audible.com to Netflix to everything. Now, I'm a child of the digital age. I couldn't part with my phone now if I wanted to. But yeah, that's I think a really good definition and example of accessibility is that it's freedom. It's freedom to be able to do the things that everyone else wants to do.
And Brandon, what I find really incredible about your story about what got you into gaming, and you said it was a joke by your older
It
brother.
was a
Was
joke.
was
Yeah,
that true? Please tell us about this story if you don't mind.
I love telling this story. I tell the story all the time, but I love telling it. Okay, so one fine day when I was about 5 or 6 years old, my brother comes to me and says, "Hey, do you want to play Super Mario Brothers?" And I was like, "No," because the thing is, the term video game was being flung around back then, and it still is obviously, but it's starting to become a popular term. And I knew the term video game, and my initial thoughts on the term was, but it's a video game. That means obviously that I can't do it because it's video, right? That's all it, video it means. I mean, I'm blind, I can't see video. So that was my initial perception of video games. So I refused initially, but he convinced me to do it. So we go down to where our Nintendo is located. He hands me a controller, and he starts the game. And before I know it, I'm saving princesses and collecting coins and smashing bricks and defeating Koopas. And then the game ends. We actually played the entire game, and I'm so happy and I'm so elated and I'm overwhelmed. And then the punchline, ladies and gentlemen. You see, my brother had handed me the unplugged second player controller and told me to press all the buttons I wanted while he played the game.
Wow, that was
So
that was cruel of him, Brandon.
it was cruel. It was cruel. And at the time, I was crushed. At the time. But I also remember very clearly, I was also a little defiant, I guess, back then, because after I got over the initial shock and sadness of it all, I vowed that I would one day play and beat a game without his help. And my vow was only one game, but that's all I wanted. It was to play a game without his help and to throw that in his face, basically. Like, I did this without you. So I started messing around with games, just trying anything. I remember I tried RoboCop for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I tried Double Dragon. I didn't beat any of those games, but I kept trying, and I started to learn that I could learn what sounds meant, and I could figure out what to do based on sound sometimes. So eventually, I kept on trying, and I finally did it. I beat the first game that I ever beat without his help. It was Killer Instinct for the Super Nintendo, the very first Killer Instinct. I beat it without his help, and I of course, the first thing I did was immediately told my non-gaming interested mother. I was like, "Mom, look what I did!" And she came in, and by then the ending had already finished. It was just the credits, so she had no idea why I was so happy. But he was like, "Oh, that's cool. Yep, okay." But I had done it, and I knew I had done it, and I never looked back since. Just being a gamer ever since then.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Are there any other accessibility technologies or any forms of accessibility out there that has really helped you to grow as an individual, grow as a professional, or just that you think is really cool and neat?
Well, yeah, I think one of the coolest technologies for accessibility to bring up right now is optical character recognition, or OCR. And one of the reasons that's so cool is what that means is OCR is the technology whereby a picture or a video image is scanned and text is pulled from it and presented to the blind person in a readable format. This has been an important breakthrough for a lot of reasons. Everything from applications that can read menus at restaurants. If they don't have a Braille menu, we can still read menus now because we can just scan them with our phones and potentially read what's there. Everything from that to being able to read our mail to games, where if a game is not designed to be played by the blind, some games can be played if you use OCR to scan the text in the game. One good example of this is the Wright Trilogy. If you've ever heard, well, the series actually. If you've ever heard of it, it's a game where it's a very, very Japanese game where you play an ace attorney and you solve cases and things like that. But it's mostly text. It's primarily kind of a visual novel kind of thing. And using OCR, I can read all the text in the game. I can read the dialogue. I can do voices for the characters. I mean, of course, that's just who I am. I do voices all the time. But anyway, OCR, big breakthrough for everything from gaming to general lifestyle. Yeah.
I love it. I love it, Brandon. And how can people find out more information about you and some of the great things that you're involved in, the advocacy that you do? How can they connect with you, Brandon?
Got a couple plugs here. It's plug time. All
Absolutely.
Right. So if you want to find out more about me, you can check out my website, www.brandoncole.net. Simple, easy to remember. And if you want to connect with me, very, very easy to do. I am Super Blind Man on almost everything. I'm Super Blind Man on Twitter. I'm Super Blind Man on YouTube. I'm Super Blind Man on Twitch. I'm Super Blind Man on Google Stadia. I'm Super Blind Man on PlayStation Network. I'm Super Blind Man everywhere, basically. So that's the easy ways to connect with me. Super Blind Man everywhere. Also, I do want to give a shout out to the movement that myself and my fiance started. It is called the Break Down Walls movement, where we aim to break down the barriers between disabled and non-disabled gamers and streamers and basically everyone, and kind of just enjoy being humans together, just support each other. And you can find more about that at our new website, breakdownwalls.net. You can join our Discord server from there. You can listen to our podcast that I host alongside my good buddy Sturlock. You can learn all about the movement and all the other people that we have involved. And check us out there.
Brandon Cole, always great to catch up with you, my friend. And
yeah, same to you, man.
And please stay well during this time of this pandemic. And we appreciate all that you do. And as we fight this fine fight of accessibility, we're excited to see what's going to happen in years to come when it comes to inclusion and accessibility. And we're glad to have you in part of the movement, my friend.
I'm glad to be a part of it. It's so rewarding. It's so worth it to do this work. Like every time you think this is difficult, sometimes everything seems difficult, but the payoff is so completely worth it.
Absolutely.
like we said, there are things that we can't talk about, but when we can, oh my goodness, the world will explode, people.
Yes, can't wait, can't wait. Hey, stay well, my friend.
Yeah, same to you, my friend.
That was Brandon Cole. Make sure you reach out to him and check him out on Twitch. Brandon's my buddy. He is a great guy. Huge shout out to his fiance Misty too. He's a cool girl. We all love these big cookies. These cookies are amazing. They know what I'm talking about out there. All right, so let's check in with our friends over at Verizon Media. Let's find out what this GAD Day means to them, and if you rely on closed caption, just the history of how that got started. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy this conversation. And I'm so happy to have with me right now a gentleman that I've had the opportunity to know for a few years, and I'm so glad that our paths crossed, the great Larry Goldberg, head of accessibility over at Verizon Media. What's going on, my friend? How are you?
Hey, Paul. Hey, Paul. You know, you're the great. You're the great. Always love talking with you.
Hey, I appreciate it, my friend. I appreciate all that you do for the community. And first, let me start off by saying happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day, my friend.
Yeah. Happy Gab to you, too.
So when it comes to GAD in this event, Larry, you've been in this game a long time when it comes to accessibility. When did you start to take on accessibility kind of as your mission, as just champion the cause?
Yeah, you know, I'm kind of lucky because it was a wandering path and I stumbled into it. It goes all the way back to 1985, amazingly enough. And it was starting in the world of captioning and public broadcasting. And I just so wanted to work in the world of video and computers where they come together. And lucked out, got this job at WGBH in Boston. That really immersed me in this whole world of technology accessibility. So starting with TV and video and computers and closed captioning. And that's now what, almost 40 years, 35 years? I can't even do the math.
You're like me. I was doing the math in my head. I was like 3, 4, 6, 7. But that's amazing, Larry. And when we look at when it might have been brought to you firsthand about captioning and the need for it, was there a blowback from the industry because it was something that kind of didn't encompass a wide range of consumers out there? You mind sharing that with us, please?
Yeah, I'd say in the early days it was tough, and it was really dealing with people who were producing TV programs who said, I don't think our audience really wants to see text on screen. They didn't see how it could be valuable for a lot more than the primary audience, deaf and hard of hearing people. So it took some arm twisting and started in the world of public broadcasting because public broadcasters have a mission to serve everyone. They're getting taxpayer dollars. They need to make sure they're as inclusive as can be. But eventually, then the major TV networks came on board. They realized the value with closed captioning, give users a choice to use tech by pushing a button and seeing the words on screen. And gradually, through a combination of consumer pressure, legislation, and the production tools just got so easy, it almost became what they call table stakes. Just basic production includes captions. It became that way.
Larry, this is why I wanted you to be a part of this GAD broadcast, because you have seen things change over the last 40 years. And I think some of the newer ones who use caption because of age or maybe because of diminished abilities that they had, I want them to find out this amazing story of where we're at today. Because if you were born like 5 years ago and you see this amazing caption that you rely on, you have no idea just what you guys went through to get it for us, Larry. And when you think back of the many years, the many decades, what has been some of your most memorable moments in this fight?
Well, it really it has been amazing how becoming mainstream, and we just love the fact that so much of what we created in our perhaps small world of tech evangelists in the world of accessibility has become so mainstream. And captioning is the best example. I've heard numbers as high as 80, 90% of the people who use captions are not deaf or hard of hearing. And that is what is truly some of the best times. But the high points, I mean, it's almost like you can't count them. I have to say, being at the White House when President Obama signed the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act, a long title for what started a major changeover in digital communications. I happened to be there with all my buddies in the tech access world and Stevie Wonder and Senator Ed Markey and so many great people. So that was a pretty big highlight, not just because of legislation, but it triggered cell phone accessibility and online media accessibility and so many other things. I think, that's 2010. That's when our community began to see this unbelievable takeoff on what we do.
And talking about this community, one thing I like about it, Larry, is just the camaraderie that ones have who are part of different organizations. I mean, it's like a real kind of friendship that ones have. It's not really a competition, or if it is a competition, it's a competition just to get accessibility and these great different innovations in people's hands who really need them. But that camaraderie is amazing, and we appreciate all the things that you guys do. And when you started off with Verizon Media, we know at first it was Yahoo. Talk about kind of like that change and that shift in focus, and how the folks at Verizon really embraced this mission that you guys have.
Yeah, it was a really interesting time. Yahoo had been at this for a while, and certainly networking with our buddies throughout the tech community. And like you say, we're so tight, so mutually supportive. We are a mutual aid society, from the top of the alphabet of Adobe through Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Intuit, and maybe Verizon Media being toward the other end of the alphabet. When Verizon acquired Yahoo, it was pretty quickly thereafter that they realized they had a gem in terms of what we're doing on accessibility. And it's been about 2 years now, and it's really escalated significantly throughout the entire much larger corporation. They've made it a pillar of their corporate social responsibility. Digital inclusion is core to what the overall corporation does. And they look to Verizon Media as an incubator, an innovation lab, so they can adopt it in the larger company. And together this year, we're actually doing GAD together for the first time, doing all kinds of internal, external activities, bonding as one big corporation now.
And that's what I'm talking about. When you see different corporations just embrace all the great things that we're doing out there to evangelize accessibility and how important that it is for ones out there. And you brought up a very good point about many ones who use captions don't really need it. I know my wife, she loves it. She just can't follow it as quick on the screen, so she puts the caption on and see what they say. So, and that's one thing we're learning about accessibility in general, where it's been created for us who are part of the disabled community, but then others see how easy it is and how it meets their needs too. And has that changed over the years from when it was maybe several decades ago, when one's probably criticized, like, why are you doing this? We don't need this. But when they started using it too. Talk about that if you don't mind, my friend.
Yeah, in the early days, they'd ask us numbers. Well, really, how many blind people use computers? And it's not a question I ever like to hear because it's not relevant. The question is, if it's your child, if it's your spouse, then one is the number that matters, not the millions that we're reaching. But over time, as our tech tools become more and more sophisticated, we began to see the numbers quite large in terms of people who turn on the accessibility features on their desktop, on their mobile devices. And the people who are data-driven decision makers realize not only is it important for a community that we need to serve as humans, but it was just good business. And things began turning around a lot through the 2000s, right up until today, where it's a business imperative. It makes companies look good, and people these days need to feel good about the tech they welcome into their home. So accessibility is an important part of this whole notion of tech for good.
That is so true. We've changed different slogans over the years, and now it's nothing for us without us. Did I say it right, buddy?
Well, it's funny. I like that one because it's nothing about us without us. Was how it started, which is, oh, you're creating special technology for me. You better include me in your research. Lately, I've been hearing, and I wish I knew who said this first, The phrase has changed to simply nothing without us.
I love
And I
that.
like that better because it says it's everything, not specialized tech or AT. It's whatever you're creating, you've got to include the community.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm gonna get my copyright team on it right away, Larry, so we can copyright that, but somebody steals it from us. No, but this is one thing that really just baffles me: how we've come in the tech sphere and accessibility. How these things are in mobile devices, tablets. That's incredible, Larry. Because a couple of decades ago, you probably didn't think this was possible, did you?
My expectations. I've always been an optimist in this field, but I don't think I ever imagined it would be so pervasive, built into operating systems as a done deal. I mean, look at the mobile systems, particularly iOS with Apple and with Android from Google. The settings and the capabilities built right into the OS are phenomenal. They're so far reaching. And then you look at things like set top boxes. I'll give a shout out to my buddies at Comcast. They now have a way of controlling your TV with your eyes just by eye gaze. And that is mainstream. It's on everyone who's got the Xfinity service. And you know what? That's a competitor to Verizon, but I'll give them a shout out for that.
I heard that. You know, we're all in this together, making the world a better place. And when we look at just accessibility as a whole, we see how it's really not only enhancing our lives but giving ones out there independence. And I remember last time we chatted, Larry, I was looking 7 months ago, and that was after you guys had your big conference and you guys had some things that you were going to lay out. Did COVID-19 kind of derail some of those plans, or is everything going full steam ahead, my friend?
You can't downplay the effect it's had on the downside to everything we do. You know, we want to get together. There's been some conferences that had to be canceled, had to go online. We're online. We're making our online platforms as accessible as possible. But, you know, we want to be together. But on the upside, people are really coming together. They're coming together on mutual benefits in terms of new technology. How fast did all the online meeting platforms start ramping up to make sure they were fully inclusive? They started including students and teachers and anyone who needed it. They give free services. So there's that aspect of the pandemic that has actually helped pull us together. I think that we're finding new technologies like, you know, you and I talked about virtual reality accessibility. Well, that project is going full steam. And I think it's because people are realizing the technology is essential to get us through all this. And when hopefully it's, well, I won't say all done, but we're better, more freer to move around, we're still going to be relying on these technologies as much as ever. And I think we've raised awareness about the essential nature of making sure we're all connected. And for what it's worth, that's been an upside to all this.
I totally agree. It seems like the tech world, even though we're in the midst of a horrible pandemic, the tech world has just exploded with some of these innovations that are coming out of nowhere that's helping us live our lives. And it's really heartwarming. Larry, I often think about, stars out there, well-known entertainers that get these love letters from people out there who love what they're doing. But Larry, you and organizations like you, companies like you doing things for accessibility, you guys are the real stars and the real rock stars out there. How does it
Well,
feel?
yeah,
How,
thank you for that,
how does
Paul.
it feel when someone reaches out to you, drops an email, drops a note, a mom, or maybe someone saying, you changed my child's life, or you changed
Yeah,
my life, you changed my spouse's life? How does that make you and the team feel when you get letters like that?
yeah. Yeah, you know, we know we're doing good stuff, but we listen to our users a lot. That's like our biggest issue. We try to have really big ears. First of all, finding out what our stakeholders, people with disabilities need. But when we hear back, like I think we've talked about fantasy sports, and there's a whole blind community that uses our Yahoo Fantasy Sports app because it's so accessible. And when I talk to those guys, they just knock me out. They're using technology that I can't even follow, and I've got vision. So yeah, we like hearing from our users every which way we can. You know, even if it's a complaint, at least it means they're paying attention, they care, and we can respond.
You know what? I almost forgot. We're supposed to have a fantasy football team this year, so we gotta get that together. Thank you for reminding me, Larry. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
did mention that, didn't
yeah,
you? Yeah,
absolutely. So
yeah.
we gotta get Margot involved and the rest of the team members. We'll get some other people we know in the business. We'll reach out to Steve
Hmm.
Yule and some of the other great people out there, and we'll get our accessibility league together. We'll have some fun with that. And
We can do that.
and Larry, before I let you go, is there anything else out there you'd like to just tell us on this GAD day and just what accessibility, how important it is?
Well, we're still raising awareness, and we feel like we're making great strides. I think we've been done better in the past 5 years than we did in the entire history before then. But I have to give you a shout out and appreciation for helping raise awareness in the media community, and for you and others who cover these issues and highlight them and find them as fascinating as we do. That's really important. So we use the day, and the founders of GAD who can really use the day to escalate everyone's attention on it. And from that day, the rest of the entire year, we'll be at it and be looking for all the input we can get and all the help we can get.
Well, I tell you this, Larry, it's been my honor and privilege. When I got into broadcasting, I kind of ran away from my disability, but then over the years, I embraced it because I was in a position to use my voice to help further the cause, and I'm so glad that I decided to champion this cause when it comes to accessibility, in addition to other things that I cover, because it's so very important. I appreciate you allowing me to talk to you and find out some of the great things that you guys are doing. So, how can one find out more information about the great things going on at Verizon Media? Any website or
Oh,
you want to
sure.
give?
VerizonMedia.com/accessibility is the place to go to hear about everything we're doing. And anything I've talked about today, you'll see it there. VerizonMedia.com/accessibility.
Awesome, my friend. Looking forward to catching up with you soon. And don't forget, in a few months, we got a fantasy football draft to get ready for. And looks like that we're going to have maybe some semblance of football in a smaller form, but we can still have a virtual draft party, have some fun, and just raise awareness
Yeah.
for accessibility, my friend.
It'll be bigger than ever online, like everything else.
Take care, my friend.
All right, Paul.
Cool. So we'll stop the recording there. Awesome job, Larry. So I will let you. Larry Goldberg, head of accessibility at Verizon Media. I remember when I met Larry at CSUN a couple of years ago. He's just an amazing person. I love finding out about closed caption and some of the great things that they're doing over at Verizon Media. All right. Well, it looks like our show may be coming to an end, but before we go, I got to chop it up with my buddy out there from Ubisoft and some of the great things that they got going over there when it comes to accessibility and all the great stuff that we love when it comes to CAD. My man, David Tisserand, or as we Americans say, David Tisserand, because we don't know how to talk right. And I'm so happy to have with me right now one of my great friends in the accessibility fight, David Tisserand over at Ubisoft. David is the senior manager of accessibility over there. David, my friend, how are you?
I'm very well, Paul. Thank you very much for having me. I'm also very happy to be with you.
And David, it's my honor and privilege to have you, my friend. We wish that we were able to celebrate GAD differently this year, but we know because of the pandemic and everything how we have to have just be safe about everything. And I hope you and your family are doing well during this time
Totally.
over up in Montreal.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Hey, David. So let's talk about accessibility in general and what it means to you and the great folks over at Ubisoft. Just how when you first started your career in gaming development, how maybe accessibility wasn't your first focus. What made you wanted to get into gaming development, especially with the accessibility kind of focus?
Yeah. Well, I think like every good story in game accessibility, it all starts with Ian Hamilton, or for a lot of people, it starts with Ian Hamilton. So I was lucky enough to meet him at the very beginning of my career when I was still a games user researcher back at PlayStation Europe. And yeah, Ian talked to me about what he was doing, his experience at the BBC, and how we could try to make games more accessible for disabled players. And back in the time, I was a junior and I had very little reach. So unfortunately, I didn't have the ability to do what I wanted to do there. But then, fast forward, years later, I had joined Ubisoft, and I was once again very lucky to be able to work on Assassin's Creed Origins for 2.5 years, roughly. And having been a user researcher in the past, I've always been a service, so someone that comes in and out, of projects. And for Assassin's Creed Origins, I was dedicated to this team, and I was with them on the floor, and therefore able to talk to people around me about accessibility. I'd say, hey, the presentation team, could we increase the size of our subtitles? Could we put a background? And trying to see here and there what we could do. And the team was very receptive. I made good friends during this time. And as you may know, when we released the game, well, we didn't have as many features as we would have liked, but some of them were really praised by the community. I think, if I remember well, we received the Barrier Breaking Award, from Dagger System for our subtitles. On social media, I could see the reaction of the deaf and hard of hearing community, and that was really heartwarming. So seeing that I could do it on one game, and that we learned from that. We learned what was working well and what we could improve to make it even better in future games. I decided to try and run with it, right? And to talk to other people in the company and do basically the same thing we did on Origins, but with every other team at Ubisoft. So yeah, I think that's how it all started.
And David, I know whenever you and I have a chance to chat in person or virtually via Twitter, DMing, one thing I can really tell is the passion that you have to help out our community. And when we look at how things have progressed over the years, do you often sit back and just trip out and say, man, we've come a long way, but we definitely got more mountains to climb and more barriers to break? And when you do that, what do you think that we as the disabled community can do to help out? Because sometimes we can be some grouchy bears. We may DM you and say, "Hey, David," but what would you want us to do? Because we're all in this together. So how can we all work
Totally.
together and just create a great movement?
Totally. So, there are plenty of things that are already happening, and I think it's worth listing them. I'll try to be as exhaustive as I can. But definitely, being active on social media, we are listening, I personally check, on Twitter and follow a lot of influencers like yourself, lots of great content as well that you're putting together, but a lot of, content creators, streamers are putting together. This is very helpful for everyone in the industry, right? If, someone wants to know, how a blind gamer can play, you can go and watch the streams from Brendan Cole, from Sightless Combat, from Steve Saylor. All this content is super useful to understand, what we need to do with our games to make them more accessible. Of course, there is getting in touch with us. So you talked about DMs. It's all right. I never receive annoyed DMs or anything like that. But one thing that I've try to inform the community about is the fact that, at Ubisoft, we've got this strategy of making an accessible end-to-end user experience. So from our trailers up to our customer support and everything in between. And, I'm very happy with the work the customer support did. So on our website, there is actually a channel for providing feedback about accessibility. And this feedback, in addition of everything else, is actually directly sent to development teams for then being prioritized and decide when they're going to be able to act on it, and when they're going to be able to release a patch maybe to fix an accessibility issue. So it's also very important, I think, to contribute in that way, because that's the official way. That's where the things are really going into the cogs of how to make a game. Other things we're doing is, sending our builds to, once again, content creators, but also review websites, thinking about, I don't know, Dagger system, can I play that? Of course, accessibility nexus, etc., and bloggers, so this is also very helpful. All this content, is informing our dev teams as we are going. And I myself reference a lot all the content I see online from the community when I talk to developers. It's always like, hey, check this review and look at this video. It's really, really useful. I'm probably forgetting a lot of other things, but those are the main ones. And actually, think about something maybe more recent that we talked about is also involving disabled gamers in workshops we are doing internally. So we're inviting disabled gamers to meet the dev teams, workshop with them solutions for their games, tailor-made solutions for particular game or genre. And that's also invaluable for the dev teams, like, meeting their audience, understanding their needs, and collaborating with them to make things better.
And David, that's one thing I really love that you really touched on about gaming developers from different companies, different studios, how they have this one mind of let's work together, let's understand this so that we can help out the accessibility in gaming for the community out there. We really appreciate that, and just to see the camaraderie that everyone has on Twitter when, let's say, when you do this, you have ones from PlayStation applauding it. You have ones from Microsoft applauding. You have all these ones applauding it because we're all in this together when it comes to this fight, when it comes to accessibility. This is something, David, that I really wanted to touch on. Able-bodied gamers out there, I don't think they understand just how important gaming is for us. We're part of the disabled community. I remember when accessibility features started to be put in different games, there was some blowback from the gaming community. They didn't understand. But I think we as a community, and we who are consultants and in the business too, I think we could do a better job of just explaining to them the psychological part of gaming and how important that is for ones who have a disability. When we have a challenge, we lose a motory skill, it makes us feel that we're not whole. But when we're able to have technology, accessibility, kind of fill in that gap, it kind of really completes us. And that really helps us with the psychology of gaming and being able to do this, to experience this. And Dave, how do you think we're doing with educating other gamers about the importance of accessibility in gaming?
Well, how can I say that? This is a long-term process, I think, and I have a limited vision, obviously, of what's happening online, and the understanding of non-disabled gamers. But I see some very strong advocates, once again, like Ian Hamilton or others, trying to educate those people. And I think, I see more and more the reaction sometimes of those people really saying like, oh, thank you. You opened my mind. I didn't know, And I think it's also our responsibility as developers, to contribute to the discussion and to show by our actions, like very recently, we released the audio described trailer of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. For me, in addition to, of course, being as inclusive as we can, everything we're trying to be as inclusive as we can in with our games and with everything that goes around it, I think it also sends a message to the industry, yes, but to everyone, right? To everyone that sees that. It shows that we as one of the big publishers, support that, and we are on the side of players with disabilities, and I think it contributes to the discussion. But I don't know, I may be too optimistic. I have a feeling things are going to change, and this is, as we use this term these days, this is becoming the new normal, right?
No, I totally agree with you, my friend. Very optimistic. And before I let you go, just two other things I wanted to discuss. One was I appreciate what you did for us at E3 last year. Um, you had a nice little station for us so that we can get under in our wheelchairs. You had a gaming station set up for it, so you and the friends over at Ubisoft, mad props. Appreciate what you guys are doing, and glad
Thank
you're
you, Paul.
able to do that for us. And we look forward to hopefully next year or maybe the year after to have that again, so we can see each other in person. If not, we'll roll with the punches because that's what we do, especially part of the disabled community. We've had to deal with challenges for all of our life. So I think that we can help ones who don't have these challenges to deal with these challenges right now with COVID-19 and kind of being at home and thinking, man, I'm just going crazy. I don't know what to do. We can help out them during this time. And David, lastly, how has technology really played a role when it comes to being able to do certain things in games that wasn't even feasible, even thought of maybe a decade ago?
That's a very good question, and maybe one for which I don't have a good answer because I'm not myself, a very tech-savvy person. I come from, social science and cognitive science, and I've never programmed a thing in my life. But I'm trying to think about, engines or middleware, that could support particular accessibility features. But I'm sorry, I may not have a good answer for you today. I
No,
apologize.
it's all right, my friend. I totally get it because I look at how we're able to do things software related to make things accessible where you don't have to use hardware as much, and I think that's incredible. Some of the things
Mhm.
that you guys have been able to do in the dev side and the user research guide to take the feedback that we have and use technology to really uh, have this completeness when it comes to gaming.
Mhm.
David,
Mhm.
before I let you go, my friend, how can ones follow you, find out more information about some of the great things that you and the team over at Ubisoft are doing?
Well, you can always find me on Twitter for sure. I think I'm at Tisran David, all attached with only one D because there's a D at the end of my family name. But anyway, you can find me. And of course, I highly recommend to look at our customer support website because there's a lot of information about the accessibility of our games there. We've got, we release FAQs about the accessibility of our games every time. And yeah, those are the main ones. I mean, check also the blog we release on the Ubisoft News. We may have something for you on for GAD today. So yeah, I think those are the main ones.
Hey, appreciate it, my friend. Always great to catch up with you, and wishing you and your family safety during this time, and looking forward to that day, my friend, where we can see each other face to face and not give each other a virtual hug, but give each other a real hug. All right, my friend.
Me too, me too. And once again, thank you very much for having me today. It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure. I tell you, that guy right there has so much humility, and what they're doing over at Ubisoft is something amazing. We really appreciate having David part of this fight with us, and looking forward to some more great things of what's happening with Ubisoft and the gaming community as a whole. Who join me? You really made this amazing. Thank you so much. And maybe we'll do it next year again. All right. Well, take care, folks. Love you guys. GAD 2020. Remember, inclusion, accessibility, adaptive technologies. We need inclusion out there when it comes to all these things. Remember, over a billion people worldwide deal with a disability. And we also thank everyone who tuned in worldwide for this amazing, amazing show. Take care, folks. Love you guys.